I can never tell. Okay, it's recording.
Hello?
Yo, what's up, weird people? I'm a donkey.
No, I am. He's called Captain Gimpy.
No, I'm
I'm Zen Burro.
a donkey. I'm angry donkey.
Okay, he's an angry donkey. I'm a stubborn donkey, but there's not much of a difference between the two. So, we're
Um,
back with another movie. A
this is
very
this
tragic
is more
movie.
like a Cinehorde conversation thing rather than
Yeah.
a straight up review because there's a lot. But what's the movie about?
So, the movie's called Bitter Harvest, and it's a movie set during the Soviet regime's oppression of the country of Ukraine. And for those who don't know what Ukraine is, go open like a history book and look at you know, a globe. It's in Eastern Europe, and this film kind of dramatizes it's this event of genocide called the Holodomor. Am
Yeah,
I saying it right? Holodomor? Yeah.
close enough.
Where the Soviets basically starved the Ukraine people into submission.
Yeah, that was one of their tactics. That was their chief tactic. The other way was to lure them away from their home villages with promises of clout and fame in their
Yeah,
trade, and then starve them of social resources once they're there.
yeah,
And then
basically.
so people would, kill themselves.
Yeah, because they also established like these high quotas that were impossible to meet, and
Yeah.
that was throughout the Soviet Union.
Yeah, that wasn't just the Ukraine. That was like everywhere.
Yeah,
Most specifically during the reign of Joseph Stalin.
yeah. So
Um,
like from the 1930s, pretty much all the way,
up
even
until
up till past World War II.
yeah, all the way through 1953, dudes.
Yeah, he was crazy.
So the story draws you in. It starts out as kind of a romance between two people, Yuri and Natalka,
Yeah,
and Yuri was played by
Max
Max
Irons.
Irons. Oh, I almost said Jeremy Irons. That would have been awesome. Because that's who I think of when I hear Irons. Max
Yeah.
Irons is such a cool name. And Samantha Barks.
Yeah, Samantha Barks.
Yeah. Um. Now, what do I say about this movie? It's difficult because there's a lot there. Like even from like a technical filmmaking standpoint, everything you hear about in film school when they force you to watch Rashomon, like with
Yep.
the sweeping, like wide shots and the judicious use of like medium close-ups, and when the medium is telling the narrative of the dead victim in Rashomon, like all of that technical stuff is present in this film. Um, it's done in the style of a drama akin to Gone with the Wind. So you'll get a lot of wide shots. You get a lot of inferior shots to make the Soviet soldiers look more powerful.
Yep.
Um, there's a change in color grading throughout the film. When the film first opens, um, on Yuri's village, there's a harvest festival going on, and um, everything is bright and shiny and new. Like you just open your eyes after a mushroom trip, and the world looks fresh, right?
Or you're just being born.
It's similar to what you would see in like Lord of the Rings and the Shire scenes in the first scenes of the Fellowship,
Yeah.
and actually in that very same style, which I think Peter Jackson knows. Um, so with that being said, um, this film does a great job of being an action movie when it wants to depict action. Um, it does a good job of augmenting the drama visually with how it cuts between the perpetrator and the victim,
Hmm.
and the emotion is carried off very well without a hitch. The acting is top tier,
Yeah.
especially for a cast very many people would not have heard of in the US. Because this is a Canadian movie.
Oh yeah.
We forgot to mention that, I think. And you were telling me it was financed by like one Ukrainian Canadian guy.
Yeah, or primarily finance. He was like he's like a businessman and stuff.
Dude,
And
he's
since like the Ukraine government didn't want to finance this film,
he did it himself.
yeah. By the way, I did read that this film was shot on in Ukraine.
Yeah,
Yeah, so I thought that was kind of cool that they actually went to the country and shot it.
that was very cool. It's funny because in talking with a friend of mine, um, she was telling me that the people in the eastern part of Ukraine had no idea how hard the people in the western portion of the country were fighting, because they're different sects of Christianity that don't necessarily mesh because of
Right.
theological differences, so they don't really, there's not a huge close association. So this story took place in the western part of the Ukraine, which was primarily Catholic,
Mm-hmm.
rather than the eastern part, which is Ukrainian Orthodox, which has its own, you know how that goes. So she said it was really surprising to learn how hard the fight was being carried on in the West too, because there wasn't a whole lot of communication. Obviously, during chaos, there's not going to be a whole lot of communication anyway.
Yeah.
Like it's hard to keep the lines of communication open. Um, Man, one of my favorite scenes was actually the almost rape scene
Yeah.
where Natalka, Samantha Barks' character, uses uh, a species of belladonna root
Mm-hmm.
to mildly poison the overseer sent by the Soviets. And he starts freaking out and he's like, "Oh my god, I'm sorry, mama." Ah! And he wigs out hard.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about that was like people would actually have to do that. That was a thing that would happen. But they couldn't poison them enough to kill them, obviously, because it just sends someone harsher. So
Yeah.
you kind of had to keep this weird equilibrium between resistance and maintaining a certain level of what's the word I'm looking for? Maintaining the status quo to a certain extent,
Yeah.
still being able to further your own fight for freedom. Um, what about you? What was one of your favorite scenes in the movie?
So Max Iron's character, Yuri, he's an artist and he just, draws random stuff and paints things. So he goes to a city of Kiev, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, to like work as an artist. And you see the beginnings of how the Soviets are uh, implementing their own standards of quote unquote art and stuff. It's something
Yeah.
that I would read in the history books in high school when we talked about this era, but we never really talked about it.
Right. Like the whole propaganda.
The notion that the Soviets had this standard of art and propaganda. And I saw this again when we were taking that film history class and we watched films from that era as well. It's the same thing. It's all very cold and calculated.
Oh, like the battleship Potemkin?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. You see the same thing in
Yeah. Yeah.
paintings and the art. And I thought the interesting scene where, all right, there's two scenes in that art studio. The first scene, there's like I think a French dude who says Yuri's art is crap, and he's like, you gotta like paint something from your heart, like from your dreams, because he mentioned like, oh, have you ever seen like the surrealists or Salvador Dali or whoever,
Right.
Picasso,
Yeah.
because he gave them as examples, like they painted from their soul and their dreams. So Yuri like kind of thought about it, and
Does that, right? He does it.
yeah, in the next scene, the French art director is replaced by just, generic Soviet dude.
Yeah,
He's
basically.
like, oh, this is ugly, even though Yuri was painting his wife, and that's like who he truly loves and cares about. And he's
And then,
like, yeah,
yeah,
and Yuri's like, you know what? Screw this. And then he just walks out.
the other thing, he was like, "Oh, this is ugly and depressing. You need to paint happy images like this."
Yeah.
Like he literally tells him what kind of thing to paint.
Mm-hmm.
And like I was thinking about Bobby Fischer's biography,
Yeah.
and because they talk a lot about the Soviet chess schools in that book,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's why there was a specific like Soviet style of fuck you chess, right?
Right.
Because they wanted to dominate every other country in the world so that people could see that the Soviet Union was the best at everything it tried to do. And newsflash, it wasn't because they can't support themselves economically ever
Right.
because you
You had to be hella skilled.
yeah yeah they didn't just take people who applied, they pick you.
Yeah.
As far as the chess went, and that was the same for artists. That's why Yuri was given the opportunity to go to Kiev
Yeah.
because they saw that he had skills, so they wanted to mold him into this Soviet talking head. And when he realized that that's what they were doing, and he wasn't allowed to do art, he was
Yeah.
like, "This isn't me.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't what I want to do." The other thing was the suicide scene.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that one?
Yep.
Oh, that scene killed me. The dude basically was like, "This place is not what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was about everyone being equal, but clearly things have gotten worse under our
Yeah.
new
When
government."
his friend pulled the trigger.
And then he was like, basically, I'm summarizing, but I'm a crappy person because I've been in love with your wife this whole time. I hope you can forgive me."
Mm-hmm.
And like basically know that I'm always your friend. And then he offs himself. I'm like, dude, dude. And it came at a moment, movies have this thing, and they rarely do it perfectly. The arc between tension and relaxation in a film, the release,
Yeah.
right? This film, every time it wanted me to feel something, I felt it. Like it was symphonic in that way.
Mm-hmm.
It was like listening to, honestly, I had the same feeling as listening to Mozart's Requiem.
Yeah.
The whole thing. And it felt exactly like the Requiem mass.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are parts of that mass that are kind of light and then followed by deep, deep stretches of things written in minor chords with a lot. Yeah, it was like music.
Yeah. 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 I agree.
And I have not seen a modern film before this that has done it, or after,
Mm-hmm.
has done that any better
Yeah.
than this film. And it's unfortunate that it has such a bad Rotten Tomatoes / Metacritic score because it doesn't deserve one.
So yeah, about that, I wanted to talk about that a little bit. Um,
Go for it. Hopefully, we don't get a.
yeah, but just really quick, some people complained that these events, like the depiction of these events, like the famine and all that, deserve a more compelling, I don't know, some compelling reason or being made in a way that's epic or compelling. But to me, because as far as I know, because there aren't really any films that are talking about this,
Yeah,
um, I think Bitter Harvest does what it set out to do. It did what it set out to do, which was to bring awareness to this obscure historical event, because the Soviets did
they
uh,
They
oppressive.
buried it. They
Y-
buried it deeply, deeply within their records. And
Yeah.
it wasn't until the collapse of the Union
Hmm.
in the 90s that some years after that they acknowledged that it even happened.
Yeah. And the other thing is this film, like, we need a film like this to be out so that when other people watch it, like, film writers, directors, and all that, if they have some connection to like a Ukraine heritage or something, they want to like create another film that depicts these events or similar. Um, it'll just keep the conversation going. It's kind of like Bitter Harvest, is kind of like
The springboard.
yeah, pretty much.
So I'm curious, what do you mean by like some people think it deserved a more epic depiction? That movie's pretty.
So, for example, there was a reviewer for the New Yorker who said something like while this film serves to bring awareness, it does deserve like a more compelling direction or something like that. It was just a blurb. I didn't actually read the whole review, but people who say things like that, they're usually film snobs.
I think this person. Here's the thing. So I purposely don't read reviews for uh, movies that people give me. By the way, I got this movie as a gift from that same person, and that's how Zen Buro got it. Because I
Yeah,
let you.
yeah, yeah.
When people give me movies to review by request, I don't
Hmm.
read other people's reviews on purpose because of what you're talking about. Like,
Yeah.
um, I don't want my opinion to be influenced by their opinion. To say that it needs a more epic treatment is wrong
Hmm.
because if you think about it, the emotional notes that it hits and how it chooses to go about them
Yeah.
is very much in the same vein of like a Saving Private Ryan type of movie. There's nothing in this film that glamorizes, and I think when you give a story like this the epic treatment, there is this tendency to want to fit this narrative into a hero's journey type of narrative
Yeah.
when really there were no winners here. There were none, and we don't know
Hmm.
what happened to the couple. We have no idea if they ever made it out. And so that's why the movie recycles back to that final scene that they used in the beginning of the two of them underwater kissing for the first time
Hmm.
when they were kids, because they want to show you they don't know what happened. All they know is
Yeah.
that wherever they are, they probably went out together somehow.
Hmm. Yeah. So it's just something I wanted to bring up. Not that I looked at reviews before watching this. It's more like
No, no, yeah.
I was just curious because, um,
There were because I did look at some comments, not reviews,
yeah.
but there were some comments that said something to the effect of what was it? I lost my train of thought. That the story is so great that deserved a more realistic depiction
Uh huh.
rather than the stylized one they chose because the clothes they were wearing, for example, in the beginning of the film, they're not everyday clothes, right? They're more special occasion type of
Right.
clothes. And but that's not the point. The point was to show that they were happy.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were content. They weren't struggling
Mm-hmm.
their lives, right?
Right.
So when you choose a stylized direction like that, the point is to allow the movie to communicate the tone
Yeah.
rather than to be 100% accurate. And the thing about the violence in the film is the fact that it's stylized to an extent. Um, actually serves that same purpose. Because if you make it too real,
Yeah.
you risk having people not watch it. Because
Right.
that, some of the violence in the movie is already difficult to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
If you make it as realistic as possible, then you turn your audience, by default, you'll turn a lot of people away.
Yeah.
And then if you go the other route and try to make it super gory, people just laugh at it because, then it becomes a gore fest.
Right.
So personally, uh, I think the filmmakers made the right choice.
Yeah, I agree. I think sometimes people, um, sometimes I think people forget that things don't have to be realistic all the time. A stylized approach, as you said, in this film, I thought it communicated the emotional tone well, like the ups and downs of the story and the depiction of those events. Because some of the more graphic scenes, to me, were the ones where you see where you've had the characters discover the ditch of corpses
Yeah,
that they found.
yeah,
And I thought, to me, it was a perfect balance of like horror and disgust. Like
yeah,
these events actually happened, and I thought like to imagine actually seeing that as it occurred in history, it would have been like horrifying. Just
yeah,
as horrifying as like the soldiers who found the concentration camps, the Nazi concentration camps throughout Europe.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
like I thought it was really effective in that. So to me, like overall, like this movie, I thought was well done.
It was fantastic. It's one of those cases where whatever rating you see on these aggregate websites, you should just watch the movie for yourself and really, really give it its due diligence. Because to not watch a movie like this, to me, is cinematically criminal,
Yeah.
right? Like, you
Hmm.
have to watch a movie like this.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm gonna just go out and say, like, if you out there, if you guys can find this movie, just watch the damn thing.
Yeah.
Watch it. Um, it showed me again how much we tend to take for granted where we are,
Hmm.
why we take it for granted, and then why we shouldn't. Because, you know, liberty is not a given.
No.
We shouldn't think of it as a given. And, it's one of those old dead guys with like the cost of liberty is eternal vigilance.
Yeah.
I don't know which one of them it was. Probably, the man whore. Probably,
Yeah.
Benjamin Franklin.
Hmm.
Sounds like something he would say.
Yeah.
Oh, man, he's funny. But I don't want to talk about Benjamin Franklin because we're supposed to be talking about
Yeah. Yeah.
this. But yeah, guys, go watch the movie. It's really
Yeah.
it's really worth your time. Um, it's an hour and 43 minutes in runtime, but it doesn't feel like that at all. Um, it's weird because it's one of those movies that feels simultaneously long and short.
Yeah.
Like it feels long in terms, it feels big,
Yeah.
but it goes by so fast. Where I'm like, wait, wait, what?
I think part of it is like there are so many different location shots.
Yeah,
Like every location was kind of different.
yeah, dead on. It'd be almost 25 minutes, so I think we should cut it.
Yeah, I think, yeah, go watch it.
Go watch the movie. Um, read history books. Um,
Beware.
understand that nothing we are experiencing today is new.
Nope.
Literally nothing. at some point in our past, our ancestors experienced a climate shift only. Even those things, right? Our ancestors experienced this, only they weren't contributing to it the way that we are. Um, and we have a choice to make better choices about how we interact with other countries, how we treat the earth, how we treat each other. I'm going on a tangent, but who cares? Watch the movie. I'll see you guys next time.
Yep. See you later.
All right.